Millionaire who couldn't have kids stepped out of his imported car on the dusty dirt road and felt the world stop when he saw two identical boys, skinny and covered in dust, standing in front of the rundown shack. Michael adjusted his blue suit jacket with trembling hands, swallowed hard, and crouched. Right there on the red dirt, getting eye level with those kids who stared at him in absolute silence. Louis gripped Ryan's hand with desperate force, both frozen like statues, just breathing deeply as they watched this man in a suit who seemed from another world. The hot wind kicked up clouds of dust around the three. Michael felt his legs grow heavy and his chest tighten. He'd come to close a land deal, but something much bigger was about to happen. The hot wind lifted the dust from the road and made the edges of the boys' tattered t-shirts flutter slightly. Michael's throat went dry. He hadn't come out here to feel that lump in his throat, one he hadn't felt in years. Before we begin, please note that this story touches on meaningful aspects of family, humanity, and personal responsibility. It is intended to invite reflection and empathy. Please continue when you feel ready. "You boys live here?" he asked, his voice hoarse, unable to hide the emotion. Ryan bit his lower lip. Louis looked down at the packed dirt ground, but neither moved from their spot. "We get by, sir," Louis replied, his thin voice cutting through the heavy silence. Michael took a deep breath, straightened his tie knot, and felt something break inside his chest. 40 years trying to be a dad. Dozens of doctors, expensive treatments, empty promises. And there they were, two boys who looked like they'd been, shaped by the same hand, lost in the middle of nowhere, needing someone as much as he needed them. The sun was heating up, stronger when Michael finally stood, brushing the dust from the knee of his expensive pants. The boys stayed glued together, watching his every move closely. A woman shouted something in the distance, but none of them turned to look. Michael pulled his wallet from his suit's inner pocket, hesitated for a second, and put it back. Money wasn't what these boys needed right now. They needed something he'd never been able to give anyone, not even himself. "What are your names?" he asked, his voice steadier. "I'm Louis, he's Ryan," the boy on the left answered, nodding toward his brother with his chin. "We're twins, but everyone already knows that." Michael smiled for the first time in months, a real smile that started deep inside and reached his eyes. "I'm Michael, and I think I ended up here for a very special reason." The weight of his own words echoed in the silence that formed between them, with only the hot afternoon wind lifting small clouds of red dust around. Louis squeezed Ryan's hand even tighter, both processing that statement in a way 9-year-old kids shouldn't have to, weighing if this suited man was just another empty promise, or if he could really mean some change. Michael saw the hesitation in their eyes and breathed deeply, knowing every word from here on would be worth its weight in gold in their lives. "You don't have to decide anything now," he said, his voice softer. "I just want you to know I didn't come here by accident, and if you'll let me, I want to be part of your lives." Ryan let go of his brother's hand and took half a step forward, his dark eyes fixed on Michael's face. "Do you have family, sir?" he asked, with that raw curiosity only kids have. The question hit Michael like an arrow straight to the chest, bringing back memories he tried to keep buried. "I did," he replied, his voice choked. "My wife passed away 2 years ago. We tried to have kids for so long, but never could." Louis frowned, trying to understand. "That's why you looked sad when you saw us?" Michael nodded slowly. "I did, but it wasn't just sadness. It was like I'd found something I'd been searching for forever, without even knowing I was looking." The distant sound of an engine approaching made the three look toward the road. An old, noisy pickup truck appeared, kicking up a dust cloud, with a lean, sunburned man driving. He slowed down, seeing the luxury car parked, stopped about 30 feet away, and got out with slow, suspicious moves. He was a man in his 40s, in dirty work clothes, his face marked by hard living. He walked toward them with firm steps, his gaze shifting between Michael and the boys. "Afternoon," the man said, taking off a faded cap. "I'm Mr. Anthony. Work the lands around here. You boys are the ones staying in that shack there." Louis nodded, but stayed close to Michael. "And you, sir?" Mister? Anthony asked, staring at the millionaire. I'm Michael. Came to check out the area, scout some properties. Mister. Anthony scratched his stubbly beard and sighed. So you don't know about these two yet, huh? The words made Michael frown. What about them? Mister. Anthony looked at the boys with a mix of pity and concern. These kids have been on their own here for over 2 years. Their mom, Patricia, took off, promising to come back, but nothing since. Their dad died when they were little. They fend for themselves, asking neighbors for help, sleeping where they can. Michael felt his blood run cold. Alone? Completely alone. Alone, Mr. Anthony confirmed. Me and my wife help when we can, give him food, let him crash at our place when it's real cold, but we got 5 kids of our own, and times are tough for everyone out here. Ryan lowered his head, ashamed to have his misery laid bare like that. Louis, though, lifted his chin in wounded pride. We don't bother nobody, he said, his voice firm. We work, help folks, don't beg for handouts. Mr. Anthony smiled warmly. I know, son, you're hard workers, polite too, but kids can't live like this, without a grown-up to look after 'em proper. Michael looked at the 2 boys and felt a physical pain in his chest. The idea of 2 kids that age facing the world alone, sleeping in an abandoned shack, relying on strangers' kindness to eat, was unbearable. Mr. Anthony, Michael said, his voice controlled but tense. You know these boys well? Known 'em since they were born, watched 'em grow up. Saw when their dad died, saw when their mom left. They're good kids, but they need someone to care for 'em right. Michael nodded, an idea forming in his mind. Would you be a witness that they're orphans, that they've got no one? Mr. Anthony looked puzzled by the question. I would. But why? Because I want to help them for real. Not charity, not pity. It's something I need to do. Mr. Anthony studied Michael's face for a few seconds, sizing up his intentions. You serious? Never been more serious in my life. The simple man nodded slowly. Then God bless you. These boys deserve a shot. He said goodbye with a wave and headed back to his truck. But before driving off, he shouted, If you need me for anything, just send word. Everyone knows Mr. Anthony from Old Man Otto's farm. When the truck's rumble faded into the distance, Michael turned to the twins. Louis and Ryan stared at him, with a mix of hope and fear, like they knew this moment would define the rest of their lives. You boys want to show me where you live? Michael asked carefully. I want to know more about your lives. The boys glanced at each other in that silent twin talk, and then Louis nodded yes. Sure, but don't mind the mess. We do what we can. They walked the short distance to the shack of weathered boards. Up close, the place looked even more rickety. The roof had several missing shingles. The door hung crooked on rusty hinges. No glass in the windows, just holes in the walls, covered with plywood scraps at night. Michael followed the boys inside and needed a few seconds for his eyes to adjust to the dim light. The interior was even more shocking than the outside. One single room served as living room, bedroom, and kitchen. The floor was packed dirt, uneven and dusty. In the right corner, an old stained mattress lay right on the ground, covered by a thin, patched sheet. That's where the 2 slept, huddled together for warmth on cold nights. On the opposite side, a 2-burner stove hooked to a rusty propane tank made up the kitchen. Some dented aluminum pots were stacked on a wooden crate that doubled as a cabinet. Michael walked slowly through the room, taking in every detail with a heavy heart. He opened the crate that served as a pantry and found only a half bag of cornmeal and a jar with some leftover salt. This all you got to eat? He asked, his voice rough. Ryan shrugged. Sometimes, mister. Anthony brings other stuff, or Mrs. Melissa from down the way. But we don't like to bother folks much, Louis added. We know how to make cornmeal mush. It fills you up. Michael closed his eyes for a second, breathing deep to control the emotion. When he opened them, he saw the boys watching him closely, trying to read his reactions. You sleep on that mattress? We sleep close together, Ryan explained. When it gets real cold, we hug to stay warm. Works okay. The casual way he said it about that desperate situation made Michael want to cry. 2 9-year-old kids shouldn't have to hug to not freeze at night. What about when it rains? Michael asked, looking at the broken shingles. We put buckets to catch the water, Louis said. Sometimes we crash at Mr. Anthony's when it's pouring real hard, but only if there's no other way. Michael walked to the glassless window and looked out. The view was pure desolation. Dry earth, tall weeds, some twisted trees from the sun. No sign of civilization besides the dirt road nearby. It was literally the end of the world, and 2 kids were surviving there alone. "Do you miss your mom?" The question came out low, almost a whisper. Louis tightened his jaw. At first we did. Cried every day, waited for her to come back. But then we got that she wasn't coming, Ryan added with an old sadness in his eyes. We stopped waiting. Hurts less that way. Those words hit Michael like a punch to the gut. 9-year-old kids who'd already learned not to expect anything from anyone, who'd built an emotional armor to survive abandonment. Michael crouched again, getting to their level. "I want you boys to know something. If I make a promise to you, I'll keep it always. I'm not like the people who've come through your lives so far." Louis stared at him with that distrust from bitter experience. "Everyone says that at first," he said. "Then they disappear, and we're alone again." Michael nodded, understanding the resistance completely. "You're right to be wary. I'll have to prove I'm different, and I will." He stood and walked to his car, returning with a cooler bag he'd brought for the trip. Inside were sandwiches, fruits, cookies, and juices. He set it all on the crate that served as a table and said, "You must be hungry. Eat whatever you want." The boys' eyes widened at seeing so much food together. They approached slowly, like it might vanish any second. Louis picked up a sandwich carefully, like it was something holy. He took the first bite and closed his eyes, savoring every bit. Ryan grabbed an apple and examined it closely before biting. "It's sweet," he said, surprised. "Been a while since we had fruit." Michael watched them eat with controlled, polite, but desperate hunger. They chewed slowly, enjoying each flavor, and always offered pieces to each other before eating. "You always share everything?" Michael asked. "Always," Louis replied with his mouth full. "If one eats, we both eat. If one goes hungry, we both do. Been that way forever." While they ate, Michael took the chance to look around the shack more. He saw some attempts at organization. The pots were clean and stacked. The mattress was made up. The floor had been swept recently. Despite all the hardship, the boys kept the place as tidy as possible. In the darkest corner of the room, he noticed an old shoebox tied with string. "What's in that box?" he asked curiously. Louis stopped eating and looked over. "Our important stuff?" he said hesitantly. "You can look if you want." Michael picked up the box carefully and opened it. Inside were some faded old photos, a broken toy car, some colored rocks, and a nearly used school notebook with yellowed pages. He picked up one photo and saw a young woman smiling, holding 2 identical babies. "This your mom?" "Yeah," Ryan confirmed, coming closer. "That picture was taken when we were born. It's the only one we have of her." Michael held the photo gently, wondering what could make a woman abandon 2 small kids like that. "You remember her?" "A little," Louis said. "She sang us to sleep and made good mush when there was milk." Ryan shook his head. "I don't remember much, just the smell of her hair." Michael put the photo back in the box, his heart heavy. Those were all the memories the boys had of their family, kept in an old shoebox. He picked up the school notebook and flipped through the pages. There were math exercises, essays in neat handwriting, colored drawings. "You boys are good students," he commented, impressed with the quality. "We liked school," Louis said with longing. "Teacher Ms. Letitia always said we were smart. Why'd you stop?" "'Cause the school's far, and we can't get there every day, and no one to sign the school papers anymore." Michael closed the notebook and put it back in the box. "Would you like to go back to school?" Their eyes lit up. "We'd love to," Ryan said. "But we can't. We don't have anyone responsible for us." "What if I was that someone?" Michael asked, surprising himself with the direct offer. "If I took care of you, made sure you went to school, had food, clothes, everything you need." The silence that followed was thick. Louis and Ryan looked at each other, talking in that silent twin language. After a few seconds, Louis asked, "You mean take us away from here?" "I'm talking about giving you a family. A real home, with warm beds, food on the table, good school." I'm talking about being the dad you never had. Ryan stepped closer to Michael, his eyes teary. You'd really do that? Be our dad for real? Michael crouched again and held both boys' hands. I would. I want to. You gave me something I thought I'd never have, the chance to be a dad. And I want to give you what you deserve, a family. Louis wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. But what if you get tired of us? What if we're too much trouble? Kids always are trouble, Michael answered, smiling. But it's trouble done with love, and I already love you, even after knowing you just a few hours. Ryan threw himself into Michael's arms, hugging tight. I want you to be our dad, he said, sobbing. Louis hesitated a few seconds, but then joined the hug. We accept, he murmured. But if you disappear like Mom did, we'll die of sadness. Michael held them close too, his chest, feeling tears run down his own face. I'll never disappear, never abandon you. That I promise. They stayed hugged for long minutes, all three crying with emotion. When they finally pulled apart, Michael wiped his face and breathed deep. Now we need to handle the practical stuff. You can't keep living here. Come with me to the city today. Louis looked around the miserable shack. We don't have good clothes to go out in, he said, embarrassed. Don't worry about that. We'll buy new clothes, buy everything you need. Michael pulled out his phone and started making calls. First to his lawyer, Zach, explaining the situation and asking him to start the legal process for guardianship right away. Then to his assistant, canceling all meetings for the week. He made a few more calls, organizing the new life about to begin. Louis and Ryan watched, amazed, not believing this was real. Done, Michael said, pocketing the phone. Tomorrow morning, Zach comes here with all the papers. We'll sort out your legal situation, and then you live with me. He looked around the shack once more. You want to take anything from here? The boys grabbed the shoebox with their memories and nothing else. There was nothing worth taking from that place of suffering. They walked together to the car. Michael opened the back door and helped the boys in. They sat stuck together, holding the box like treasure. Where are we going? Ryan asked as Michael started the engine. First, we'll buy clothes for you, then home, to our home. Louis looked out the window, watching the shack fade behind. We won't miss that place, he said. We'll just miss being alone. The drive to the city took 2 hours. On the way, Michael told about his life, his house, his plans for the future with them. The boys listened closely, asking questions, getting to know this man who'd changed their lives in hours. When they reached the big city, their eyes widened at the tall buildings, busy streets, lit-up stores. This where we'll live? Ryan asked, amazed. Right here? And tomorrow you'll see the new school, go to the doctor, the dentist, do everything kids your age need to do. Michael parked in front of a kid's clothing store and the three got out. The salespeople looked oddly at this well-dressed man with 2 dirty, ragged kids. But Michael ignored the stares. They bought clothes, shoes, toys, school supplies. Louis and Ryan tried everything on carefully, still not believing it was real. Pick what you want, Michael said. Now you're my sons. You can have what you need. When they left the store, the boys were unrecognizable in new, clean clothes, carrying bags full of gifts. Michael's house was a grand mansion in an upscale neighborhood. When the automatic gate opened and they pulled into the garage, Louis and Ryan were speechless. All this yours? Louis asked, staring at the 3-story house. Now it's ours, Michael corrected. This is your home, too. He showed them around all the rooms, ending on the 2nd floor, where he'd set up 2 bedrooms side by side, each with a comfy bed, desk, bookshelf, and toys. Each has your own room, Michael explained. But if you want to sleep together at first, no problem. The boys entered the rooms slowly, touching everything with awe. They'd never imagined having something so nice and comfortable. Like a dream, Ryan murmured, flopping on the soft bed. Better than a dream, Louis said. It's real. That night, after dinner made by the housekeeper, the 3 sat in the living room to talk. Michael wanted to know the boys better. Their likes, dreams, fears. He learned Louis dreamed of being a vet to help abandoned animals. And Ryan wanted to be an artist to make comic books. You can be anything you want, he promised. I'll make sure you get the best education. When bedtime came, the boys hesitated. Can we sleep together tonight? Ryan asked. We've never slept apart. Michael smiled. Of course. Do what's best for you. They pushed the beds together and slept side by side, like always. Michael stayed up all night, planning the future, thinking of everything to give his new sons the best life. Next morning, Zach arrived early with all needed documents. He explained the process would take time, but he'd gotten temporary guardianship, so Michael could legally care for the boys while adoption finalized. You understand what this means? Michael asked the boys. It means I'm officially responsible for you now. No one can take you from me. Louis and Ryan signed the papers with shaky hands, still not believing it was real. When Zach left, Michael crouched in front of them again. Now you're officially my sons, he said emotionally. Louis and Ryan Thompson, because you'll take my last name. The boys threw themselves into his arms, crying with joy. The following days were adjustment. Michael enrolled them in the city's best school, took them to the doctor and dentist, bought everything for their new life. They adapted quick to a normal family routine. Breakfast together, school, homework, family dinner, bedtime stories. Michael discovered the joy of fatherhood, caring, worrying, loving unconditionally. 3 months later, on a Saturday afternoon, the three were in the backyard when Louis asked a question that caught Michael off guard. Dad, you regret finding us? The question came out of nowhere, but Michael sensed insecurity behind it. He stopped what he was doing and looked at the two boys playing on the grass. Regret? Finding you was the best thing in my life. You gave me a reason to live I hadn't had in years. Ryan came over and hugged Michael around the waist. We don't regret accepting you as dad either, he said. You kept all your promises. Michael smiled, his heart overflowing with happiness. And I'll keep keeping them for the rest of my life. You're my sons forever. He looked at the blue sky, thinking how life could change completely in hours. He'd left home that morning, 3 months ago, as an empty, lonely man, and returned as father to 2 extraordinary boys. That night, after the boys went to sleep, Michael stayed alone in his study, looking out at the lit garden. He thought of the dirt road, where it all started, the miserable shack where Louis and Ryan lived, the decision that changed all 3 lives forever. He picked up the phone and called Mr. Anthony, the simple man who'd witnessed their meeting. Mr. Anthony, it's Michael. Wanted you to know the boys are doing great. Really great. On the other end, the man's emotional voice replied, I knew you were different. God bless you 3. When he hung up, Michael smiled to himself. He'd gained a family, but more than that, he'd discovered love doesn't need blood to be real. That fatherhood doesn't need biology to be true. And sometimes miracles happen on the most unlikely back roads of life. He went upstairs and peeked at the boys sleeping hugged, as always, but now in comfortable beds, under soft comforters, safe and loved. He whispered softly, Thanks for choosing me as your dad. I promise I'll never let down that trust. The following months brought a routine Michael never imagined possible. Waking early to make breakfast, helping with homework, attending school meetings, tending scraped knees and night terrors. Each little everyday act of fatherhood filled a void he didn't know existed. Louis and Ryan blossomed in that environment of love and security, but also faced challenges that tested the new family's strength. School adjustment was the first big hurdle. Though smart and hardworking, the boys had a big educational gap from years of neglect. Michael hired tutors, but realized the issue wasn't just academic, it was emotional. They were ashamed of not knowing, afraid of disappointing their new dad, terrified that if not perfect, they'd be sent back to the shack. It was on a Tuesday afternoon that Michael found Ryan crying over his math books. I can't get it, Dad. I'm too dumb. Michael sat beside him and gently closed the notebook. Son, you're not dumb. You just didn't have the same chances as other kids. But that'll change. We'll go at your pace. No rush. Realizing he needed help at home, Michael decided to hire a housekeeper who was more than an employee. Someone to bring warmth to this mansion, still learning to be a home. After several interviews, he met Isabella, a woman in her 30s, with work callous, said hands and a direct gaze that showed honesty. She didn't have fancy degrees, but had experience raising her 3 younger siblings after their parents died. During the interview, as Michael asked standard questions, Louis and Ryan peeked through the door crack. Isabella noticed them, smiled, and winked discreetly. That simple act of kindness, not scolding, sealed the hire. Isabella changed the house dynamic. She didn't just cook and clean, she listened to the boys' worries, noticed when Louis was sad or Ryan needed a hug. It was she who discovered Ryan's natural drawing talent and suggested Michael buy professional art supplies. It was she who saw Louis squinting at the school board, leading to a myopia diagnosis and glasses that boosted his grades. One afternoon, Michael came home early from work and heard laughter from the main bathroom. The door was ajar, and he saw Isabella on her knees on the floor, uniform neat but sleeves rolled up, helping the boys bathe a stray mutt they'd found on the street. "Hold still, or soap will get in Rex's eyes," Isabella said, laughing, holding the slippery dog. Louis and Ryan were soaked, foam in their hair, laughing like Michael had never seen. Water splashed out, wetting the expensive marble floor, soaking Isabella's uniform. In any other situation, that'd be grounds for a scolding. But Isabella handled the mess with charming naturalness, putting the boys' joy over house order. Michael cleared his throat, announcing himself. "Mr. Michael!" Isabella exclaimed, blushing. "Sorry for the mess." The boys found this dog in the rain, and Michael raised his hand, interrupting, and smiled. "Is the dog staying here now?" Louis and Ryan looked at their dad hopefully. "Can he, Dad, please?" Michael looked at the mess, at his sons' happy faces. If Isabella agrees to help care for him, he can stay. The months passed, and life seemed perfectly on track. School grades improved. Nightmares lessened. Rex the dog got fat and got a doghouse in the yard. Michael felt he'd finally built the family he always dreamed of. But on a Thursday morning, the first real test came. He got a call from the school, the secretary's voice tense on the line. "Mr. Thompson, need you to come here urgently. There's been an incident with your sons." Michael's heart raced. When he arrived, he found Louis and Ryan in the meeting. Principal's office, heads down, clothes dirty with dirt. "Your sons got in a fight at recess," the principal explained. "They hit 3 older boys." Michael frowned, confused. "Why'd you do that?" Ryan looked at him with teary eyes. "They were teasing us, Dad. Said we weren't your real sons, that we were just street kids you took in out of pity." The revelation hit Michael like a gut punch. He crouched in front of the twins, holding their faces. "Look at me. You are my real sons. Doesn't matter how our family started. What matters is the love we have for each other. And no one can take that from us." Louis finally spoke, voice choked. "But they said we don't have the same blood as you. That will never be a real family." Michael smiled tenderly. Family isn't about blood. Family is about choice, about love, about being there in good times and bad. I chose you. You chose me. And that makes us more real than any blood tie could. The principal stepped in. "Given the circumstances and your son's excellent behavior otherwise, I'll just give a warning. The other boys were punished for bullying too." On the way home, Michael talked to the boys about it. "There'll always be people who don't get our family, who make mean comments, but that says more about them than us." Ryan snuggled in the car seat. "But it hurts when they say stuff like that." "I know it hurts. It's normal to feel angry. But you can't let others' opinions define who you are." Louis looked at his dad seriously. "You ever been ashamed of us?" The question caught Michael off guard. "Ashamed? Never. I'm proud of you. And whenever someone asks about our story, I tell it with the greatest pleasure." 2 weeks later, Michael got a call that chilled his blood. It was Mr. Anthony, the man who'd witnessed their meeting on that dirt road 2 years ago. "Mr. Michael? Need to talk to you about something delicate." The boy's mom showed up here. Michael's heart stopped. "Patricia, she came back?" "Yeah, and she's asking about the boys, wanting to know where they are." Michael thanked him and called his lawyer immediately. "If she wants to claim the boys, it could complicate things," Zach explained. "She's still the biological mom. We'll have to handle this in court if she pushes." Michael didn't sleep that night, thinking of all possibilities. He couldn't imagine losing Louis and Ryan now, after building a life together. Next morning, after dropping the boys at school, he came home planning how to broach the subject. When he picked them up that afternoon, he took them for ice cream, a Friday ritual they'd developed. "Boys, I need to tell you something. Your mom came back to the area you used to live." The spoons stopped mid-air. Louis and Ryan looked at each other. "She wants to see us?" Ryan asked, voice small. "She's asking about you, but I need you to know nothing changes. You're my sons. I'm your dad, and I'll fight for you with everything I have." Louis set down his spoon. "We don't want to see her. She abandoned us. You're our dad now." Ryan agreed. "We don't want to go back there. We want to stay with you." Michael's eyes stung. "And you will stay with me, I promise. But we might have to go to a judge to explain. You'll have to be strong and tell the truth." 3 days later, Patricia showed up at the mansion door. Michael met her alone, not letting her see the boys yet. She was a woman about 35, too thin, with deep, dark circles and clothes that looked too new, bought in a hurry. She looked around with a mix of envy and resentment. "So this is where my sons are living." "It is. I want to see them. Before that, we need to talk." They sat in the living room, keeping distance. Patricia started talking, justifying her abandonment with a muddled story about going to find work in another state, getting sick, not being able to return. Michael listened silently, spotting the contradictions, the poorly disguised lies. "Why come back now?" "Because they're my sons. I have a right to see them. You left them for over 2 years. Abandoned 2 8-year-olds in a shack, hungry, cold. Where was your motherly right then?" Patricia looked away. "I was going through a hard time, but I'm better now. I want them back." Michael leaned forward. "You don't want them back. You want money. You found out they're in a mansion and thought you could cash in." The woman had the decency to look ashamed for a second. "They're my sons. They came from me. You have no right to keep them. I have full custody. You abandoned them, and that has consequences." Patricia stood furious. "I'll go to court. I'll prove you stole my sons. Go ahead. The court will hear the whole story, including the abandonment, neglect, suffering you caused." The argument was cut off by footsteps on the stairs. Louis and Ryan were there, had heard everything. They came down slowly, stopping beside Michael. Patricia looked at her sons and for the first time seemed truly moved. "My boys, how you've grown." But the boys didn't move toward her. They stayed glued to Michael, looking at the woman who'd given birth to them like a stranger. "You not gonna hug your mom?" Patricia asked, arms out. Louis stepped forward, shielding his brother. "You're not our mom anymore. You left and left us alone. Our dad is Michael now." Patricia tried to approach, but Ryan hid behind Michael. "I know I messed up, but I'm your mother. That doesn't change." "Mom is who cares," Ryan said, stepping out from behind Michael but keeping distance. "Who shows up? Who gives food, takes to the doctor, helps with homework? Mr. Michael did all that. You just left us alone." The kid's words hit Patricia like arrows. She looked at Michael with anger. "You turned them against me." "I didn't need to turn anyone. They remember well what happened. Remember going hungry, cold, alone, waiting for you to come back." Patricia tried once more. "Boys, I can change. We can be a family again." But Louis shook his head. "We already have a family. With our dad, we don't want another." The woman realized she'd lost. Her sons didn't want her back, didn't see her as mom anymore. She looked around the luxurious mansion and then fixed her eyes on Michael. "I'll go, but only if you give me money to start over." Michael felt disgust, but knew it was the quickest way to end this. How much? 100,000. Michael wanted this woman away from his sons fast. "I'll give you the money, but you sign a document, renouncing custody officially, and never show up in their lives again." Zach, his lawyer, prepared the document right there. Patricia signed without reading much, eager for the money. When she left through the door with the check in hand, Louis and Ryan breathed relieved. "She won't come back?" Ryan asked. "She won't," Michael assured. "Now you're officially my sons forever." The three hugged, crying with relief and joy. Isabella, who'd witnessed it all from the kitchen, joined the hug, completing that family formed so improbably, but so truly. In the following weeks, the full adoption process wrapped up without issues. With Patricia's renunciation, no more legal hurdles. Michael threw a small party at home to celebrate, inviting just close folks, Mr. Anthony and his family, some friends, the boys' teachers. It was a simple but moving celebration, marking the official start of a new life. During the party, Mr. Anthony pulled Michael aside. I knew you were different from that first day. Saw in your eyes it wasn't charity, it was real love. Michael smiled. That was the most important day of my life. I was empty, without purpose, and suddenly found two boys who needed me as much as I needed them. Life went on naturally after that. Louis and Ryan kept growing, studying, developing. Michael never lost the habit of waking early to make their breakfast, helping with homework, being there for every school play, every soccer game, every big moment. Isabella became a constant, loving presence, a second mom to the boys, and a quiet companion to Michael. Love between them grew naturally, from living together, mutual respect, admiration for her care of the boys. To add a touch of American spirit, they started family traditions like backyard barbecues on 4th of July, cheering for local baseball teams, and volunteering at animal shelters, blending their bonds with community involvement. Sometime after that initial meeting, on a starry night, the four were on the porch, stargazing. Ryan broke the silence with a question. Dad, you think we would have survived if you hadn't shown up? Michael thought carefully. I think you'd have found a way. You're strong, fighters, but maybe wouldn't have gotten to be kids, to study, to dream, Louis reflected. I think we met at the right time. You needed sons, we needed a dad. Like the universe planned it. Michael smiled in the dark. Maybe it did. I don't believe in coincidences. They sat quiet for minutes, just enjoying each other's company. Dad, Ryan said suddenly, thanks for not giving up on us, for keeping all the promises. Michael's throat tightened. I thank you for giving me the chance to be your dad, for trusting me when you had no reason to trust strangers. Louis stood and hugged Michael, soon joined by Ryan and Isabella. We love you, Dad, and I love you more than anything in this world. The years flew by. Birthdays celebrated with big parties, Christmases with giant trees and gifts, but mostly gratitude. 5 years after that dirt road meeting, the house was in celebration mode. It was Louis and Ryan's high school graduation. They were 17, tall, healthy, confident teens. Michael adjusted Louis's tie in the hallway mirror, while Isabella tried to tame Ryan's wild hair. Dad, I don't need a tie, it's hot, Louis complained. It's a ceremony, son. Gotta look sharp, Michael replied, laughing. In the school auditorium, when they called the twins, names for diplomas with honors for academic overcoming, Michael let tears flow without shame. He remembered the dirty, dusty boys with hopeless eyes, and now saw two bright young men with a whole future ahead. Louis took the mic to thank on behalf of the class. He looked at the audience, found Michael's face, and smiled. Lots of people say family is blood, Louis began, his deep voice echoing in the hall. But I learned family is who stays, who cares, who teaches. My brother and I were lucky to find a dad who chose us when the world forgot us. And a heart mom, Isabella, who taught us real affection. Isabella covered her mouth, sobbing. Michael held her hand and squeezed tight. So this diploma isn't mine, it's ours. The Thompson families. The crowd applauded, standing. Michael felt a fullness he never thought possible. All the money, companies, business successes weren't worth a second of that moment. Outside, heading to the parking lot, Ryan side-hugged Michael. Dad, remember that day on the road when you asked if we lived there? Michael nodded, like it was yesterday. Ryan looked at the starry sky. I knew you were good people. Louis was scared, but I knew. Louis laughed and punched his brother's arm lightly. Liar, you were shaking like a leaf. They laughed, a free and happy laugh. They went home to the mansion, now a true home, full of memories, photos on walls. Life. Rex the dog, now old and gray, came wagging his tail slowly to greet them. Isabella headed to the kitchen for a late snack, and the boys went up to change out of formal clothes. Michael stayed in the living room, poured a whiskey, and sat in the armchair. Watching the house bustle, He thought how fate was funny. He thought he was going to buy land to expand business, but was going to find his soul. Thought his line would end with him, but now had 2 sons to carry his values forward. The loneliness that haunted him was gone forever, replaced by video game noise, sneakers tossed in the hall, talks about girlfriends and college plans. Isabella came back from the kitchen and sat on the armchair arm. He wrapped his arm around her waist. "You're happy more than I deserve. We deserve it. We built this with patience, with truth." The boys came down in comfy pajamas and flopped on the big couch, turning on the TV. "Dad, Isa, come watch the movie with us." Michael stood, took Isabella's hand, and walked over. He sat in the middle with a son on each side and the woman he loved by him. Louis rested his head on his dad's shoulder. Ryan stretched his legs over Isabella's lap. The movie started, but Michael didn't watch the screen. His focus was on his son's steady breathing, Isabella's warm hand, the solid sense of belonging. He looked at the shelf where the old shoebox sat, now restored and kept as a relic. Inside the painful past, outside the bright present. Michael closed his eyes a moment, saying a silent prayer of thanks to the universe for that flat tire, that GPS glitch, that unexplained urge to stop the car in the middle of nowhere. Life wasn't made of the plans we make, but the detours we embrace. The movie ended, the boys nearly asleep on the couch. "Bedtime," Isabella announced softly. They grumbled but obeyed, getting up with teen slowness, gave goodnights and went up the stairs, shoving and laughing quietly. Michael turned off the living room lights, leaving just the soft garden glow through the window. He hugged Isabella, and they stood there, listening to the house's last settling sounds for sleep. No more fear of the future, no ghosts of the past, just the quiet certainty that, whatever came, they'd face it together. Because family isn't just who's in the picture frame, but who holds your hand when the world crumbles, and who cheers front row when you win. Michael kissed Isabella's forehead and whispered the truth defining his life. Now, next morning, as always, Michael woke early to make breakfast. While setting the table, he heard the familiar footsteps down the stairs. Louis and Ryan appeared in the kitchen, still sleepy, and sat in their usual spots. Isabella came down soon after, fixing her hair. The 4 exchanged knowing smiles, that silent communication only true families have. "Morning, Dad. Morning, Mom Isa," the boys said together. Michael served the coffee with his heart full of love, looked at his family around the table, and replied with emotional voice, "Morning, my sons. Morning to the rest of our lives together." Because we discovered true love doesn't need blood to exist, just hearts willing to choose each other every day. If this story touched you somehow, subscribe to our channel, leave a like, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next stories.